On this week's episode of the Modern Dealer Podcast, David and I are talking Monster Truck Jam, ramen noodles, events and goals in Google Analytics, Starbucks' original coffee shop, and Facebook's zero friction future for automotive. All that and more on this week's episode of the Modern Dealer Podcast. Welcome in to episode 031 of the Modern Dealer Podcast. My name is David Farmer with Entice, and with me, as always, is David Bertoncini.
It's like a long intro.
One, right?
It's like a nice smooth, man.
Yeah. I feel like The Tonight Show and who is that? Ed McMahon.
Oh man, that's dating us, brother. That's dating us, but that's okay.
That's old school, right?
I think everybody knows our age and who we are.
It's Johnny.
The good old days, man. That's some good old stuff right there. But,
so how you doing, David?
You know, a little somber today. You know, real tragic news, and out of California there with Kobe Bryant and his daughter's death. Sad. I mean, I'm not a basketball fan, but I am a fan of great people and excellence and great accomplishments. And I feel like we reflect on people after they've passed, and we put them on a higher pedestal than when they were actually alive. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's just, you see all the candlelight for everything that was happening yesterday in Hollywood was just like. Wow. All over, you couldn't miss anything on social media without seeing it anywhere. So it was just like, flooded. But, going back to the somberness of it, it's just, sad to see somebody both so young. I mean, Kobe's only 41 and his daughter was 13, just to see, young lives ended. But, it is, and it's an unfortunate thing, but these things do happen. I mean, we do, think about, we're humans and we fly. Yeah. I mean, we have aviation.
Yeah, we're sitting in a chair in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And I'm about to, go fly myself. I'll probably jump on a plane tomorrow, and it's a risk that we always take. But I'm always fascinated by aviation because that's what I used to work on when I was in the military, was aviation. But on that note, everything else is good.
Very good.
Here we are in Modern Dealer Podcast in the studio, ready to rock and roll. I'm focused. Excited to cover this week's content, and just ready to roll into it, man. Cool. How about you?
Cool. Yeah, I'm doing very well. Speaking about the Kobe and his family, I mean, it's got to be a tough time for them. I think that at certain points in your life, you really reflect on how you're living your life. I've just turned 50. I think that's one of those points in life where you really have to examine where you're at, what you've been, what you're doing. I feel very lucky to be where I'm at, doing what I'm doing. But when somebody dies like that, young, 41, and really, one of the best, if not the best basketball player. I mean, I think there's been a lot of comparisons around him and some of the other greats, but it does make you realize that you have to live your life for today because you might not have a tomorrow.
That is really true. It's definitely an eye opener when these things happen. But it is, makes us all appreciate each day. Take one day at a time and live today like there would be no tomorrow. So go all out every day, all the time, man.
Absolutely. So today, David, our main topic is Facebook, but specifically they released they released something specifically about automotive recently, and I wanted to cover that because I think it's very topical. And just as we talked before recording today, is that a lot of people probably found out about what happened with Kobe Bryant on social media. Facebook really is, the biggest part of social media, and it's really where customers are engaging with different brands. They're engaging in different type of purchase activity. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Zero friction future auto. So the zero friction future is it's kind of a mantra, is kind of a something that Facebook is doing and utilizing in different areas in e-commerce. So it is a way to really look forward to what is the future of e-commerce in relationship to social media and on mobile devices. So I think it's a really cool way to really look at how dealers can engage with consumers on social media by looking at where is the friction. So we're gonna share some links in our in the show notes here. You can also go to facebook.com/business/zero-friction-future/auto, which I'm sure you don't want to do. But that's where you're going to find.
We'll make it frictionless by just clicking on the link.
One click. Hey, that's a really good idea, right?
That's actually the premise of.
So go down in the show notes and click on that link if you want to see what we're talking about. So we're gonna see some content on this landing page that they have, and they have multiple PDFs that you can download. And as always, this is a podcast that includes commentary around the modern dealer. A lot of what we're going to be talking about today is really identifying what are some of the trends that the modern dealer needs to be focused on inside of automotive, but not necessarily doing a full report on what this content is. We're not going to be doing a how-to, but we're just going to be covering some of this information and just kind of get our ideas of what they're talking about. So for what Facebook is considering friction, let's just chat about that real quick. Being frictionless is something that Google has talked about over the last couple of years. It's not something that's new to Facebook. Friction really is anything that gets in between what your customer wants to do and accomplishing that. So maybe it is like they have example on this page here, scheduling a test drive where you have to complete a whole bunch of information to be able to just schedule a test drive, something that's simple. Or a trade-in value might not be available after going through 50 different steps. And maybe that's a really good example of where we can see friction in what's happening on your dealership website right now is around the trade value, for example. Where in many tools that are on the marketplace right now, a customer might have to complete 50 different things, like, do I have an extra set of keys? Do I have all 4 matching tires? Have I ever been in a vehicle accident before?
Smoked in, headrest, spare tire, jack. I mean, there's a lot of questions that are thrown out there, and this just slows things down.
Exactly. Forcing your customer to go through all these steps before they get the information that they're looking for. So I think that's a good way to illustrate what friction is and how we can remove that friction. So here's some stats as we're looking through it. The first one I'll go ahead and read, and we can get you to go through the other one. But the first one, friction affects automotive businesses in more ways than you think. 50 plus friction points identified across the automotive consumer journey in the U.S. from discovery to purchase and ownership. So they've done. Facebook has teamed up with the Boston Consulting Group and commissioned this study in just recently in August of 2019. So that information is available. And then 70% of people surveyed.
Yeah, 70% of people surveyed who plan to purchase in the next 3 months saying that buying is very stressful. Just like when we had Sue B. Zimmerman on here, she said she'd rather go to the post office than. I thought the dentist ranked higher than the post office, but there must be some rough post office up there in Massachusetts. She said, "I'd rather go."
I think we've all heard the dentist is something that they would rather do than go to purchase a vehicle, but maybe the post office is a difficult thing.
There's some friction there. I could see where she's coming from, and there was some friction in just simply trying to buy some stamps or send something, and then of course they keep on asking, "Do you want to buy stamps?" I'm like, "No, I've got a whole stack of them at home. I don't think I've used in years."
Yeah. And, I think, talking about and identifying the points of the sales process that can be painful, let's just talk about that real quick. I mean, how many different areas could a customer want to engage with you as a automobile dealership? So we know, again, we're talking about that tier 3 dealer. We're not talking about the OEM so much. A lot of what they are talking about here is, in this Facebook friction study is a car launch, which is more tier 1 activity versus a tier 3. But there's a lot of the purchase process that they identify where there's a lot of pain points. One of them, I think I mentioned just a little while ago, is scheduling a test drive. And this is an opportunity for people watching the Modern Dealer podcast to really think about, if a customer wanted to schedule a test drive with you at your dealership, how would they do that? So it's identified that that's a point that customers have a challenge with. And right now, David, what do you think there are ways for a customer to engage with a dealership right now to schedule a test drive?
So the old school way would be, and of course not the modern way, just simply pick up the phone and say, hey, I see this vehicle you guys have in stock. I'd like to come test drive the vehicle. Most likely it's going to be an internet lead. It's going to come in. Someone's going to get a lead. Response times, we've talked about that in previous episodes, but responding to that lead quickly and engaging with that customer to try to schedule an appointment through an internet lead could be also.
That could be so really a customer could call a dealership. And where is some of the friction that a customer might have getting to a salesperson?
Being on hold,
right?
Which they absolutely hate.
Or the first step, they call the dealership. What do they usually get?
An automated system, not a live person. So I mean, that's so important in this day and age. Is we're trying to, reduce friction. Yeah. I mean, really, that automated system just increases friction.
So that's the very first thing that a customer, when they decide, if they decide to call the dealership, they're going to run into friction by going through an automated process, right? And does anybody enjoy going to an automated process? No. Not at all. So that's, friction point number 1. Friction point number 2 is they have to get to a receptionist, right?
And that receptionist, I mean, that is your ambassador of first impressions. And if they answer the phone, thank you for calling the Modern Dealer podcast. This is Elsa. Do you mind holding? I'm like, oh God, I do mind holding. This is going to be terrible. It's already just diminished, and that's friction right there.
And what's funny is we've talked about my experience recently in purchasing a vehicle for my daughter, and I ran into the same type of issues trying to get to either a business manager or the salesperson, and. What I would say this probably happened half the times I called the dealership. Hey, I'm looking for Will in the business office, and then I ended up getting Will in the service department, and then I said, hey, Will, I'm so-and-so. I'm talking. Oh no, this is the service department, not. You need to speak to somebody in the business office.
Right.
Yes, that's what I asked for. Can you put me to that person? Then I go back to the receptionist. It's like, hey, I just called a few minutes ago. I was trying to get to Will in the finance department or the business office, not in the service department. Can I speak to that person? Yeah, let me put you on hold. And it was a painful process. So friction from the very get-go is just putting a customer that might be looking to schedule a test drive, which I would think would be considered a hot prospect, right? In making them jump through all those hoops. So the first thing I would look at, just from the very first point of contact, is how can you clean that up? How can you remove some of the friction?
Get the automation out, first of all. Make sure your receptionist does answer the phone. And it's hard to find people in that position of the store. I can remember one receptionist that was absolutely memorable on the positive side, that she said, I've been here for 17 years, absolutely love my job. I come in here every day with a good attitude. I'm like, and you can tell because I physically met her and just over the phone when calling the store. This is a dealership on the other coast, 250 miles away in Miami. And I was like, wow. And it's a Cadillac dealership. I'm like, you're doing a great job. And I'm like, there's tons of stores I call, and I can just feel the energy, no friction on that end of the phone. She's like, I'd be happy to get that person for you. So reducing that automation, putting a human being in place for that, and take care of take care of that person.
Another thing that other ways that customers could contact the dealership to schedule a test drive would be, some sort of call to action on your dealership website. Now, typically what I see when somebody's looking to schedule a test drive is they have a schedule a test drive link that's just going to open up a web form. Maybe it's a generic web form, but maybe you start to think about what would be the ideal way to allow somebody to schedule a test drive. One of the things that I noticed in the Facebook IQ deal here that we're looking at is that they talk about giving the customer the ability to schedule a test drive at home. Now, we know that that's something that is very popular with companies like CarMax. They're offering test drives that are being delivered to you. We work with some dealerships that are also doing that. So that's something you might want to think about as a dealer. How can you remove friction is look at the process that you have for allowing a customer to schedule a test drive at home. Now, if it were me and I was in a dealership, I would want to make sure that I had a team or that my sales team was set up to be able to facilitate test drives at home or at work in a way that really is frictionless or seamless. So a quick little Entice commercial. So we have LeadMaker, which is a test drive scheduling tool, which allows a customer to, right from the homepage or any page, is to schedule a VIP express test drive at the dealership, at home, or at work. But then we look at removing the friction that would normally be caused in that process. For example, if it is just a simple web form, we know that you're only capturing the contact information, which is really forcing that lead to go to somebody in the internet department, hope that they're going to respond quick, like you mentioned a few minutes ago. And when they respond, they're not just responding with an auto response or, hey, you sent in a lead, what can I help you with?
Right.
I sent in a lead to schedule an appointment for a test drive. Yeah, we can do that. But facilitating a technology that do you want an express test drive at the dealership? Do you want one at home? Do you want one at work? When do you want it? And kind of funnel that customer right through the test drive process. And then think about, well, how can you facilitate that directly in Facebook instead of moving them from a Facebook ad to the homepage of your website and then force the customer to find where they can schedule a test drive on your website, is that you put them directly into the scheduling solution, whether that's a technology like LeadMaker or it's something that you build or it's something that's just inherent in Facebook itself, because there's a lot of tools and technology that's available in Facebook that you can build these things with the technology that's already there.
Simple technology that's there already is just a simple Facebook appointment calendar, which is on which is already in your Facebook page. So if a customer wanted to schedule a showroom visit, mostly for a test drive, that's available there already. But to make sure that you've captured even more additional information, frictionless. Let's see if I can say that fast. Using like TradeMaker or LeadMaker being being able to capture that information and also incentivizing the customer to come into the dealership, not just for a test drive, but you got to throw a little bone out there for them too.
Sure.
It's other entry points other than the phone and the internet does segue right into somebody trying to find your dealership on Facebook, because some people are going to just maybe new to the area. They've not heard your commercials. They've not seen your billboards, your radio, newspaper, anything like that. They're just going to go right to your Facebook page, learn a little bit about the culture of your store, and may just immediately at that point decide they want to come into the dealership. And they didn't go through your traditional website because they're mostly on social media. They're not really living on a dealer's website. So I mean that's another avenue that can come through different social platforms, several different ways to make sure that you have somebody live there to engage with that customer, because, think of that as just like an internet lead. And I think dealers are not as focused on that as, they're like, oh, we get this many internet leads. Okay, well, how many Facebook leads did you get? And they're like, they do not know the answer. 97% do not know the answer to that. They're like, oh, I don't know. We don't really care about Facebook leads. I'm like, why not? I mean, that's just where all the focus and the attention is. I mean, like we said, how did you find out about the latest news? Is from social media.
That's where people are engaging. I mean, I think that is a very important part of business going forward, not only making sure that you're looking at removing the friction, allowing a customer to get to where they want with the least amount of steps possible, but really where they're doing it. I think a lot of Sue B, actually, when we had her on the podcast, when she goes out and looks for to engage with customers, she doesn't go to a website, she goes to Instagram. I think a lot of people are doing that now, where they'll just do a search right in Facebook and or Instagram and see, try to find the answers there instead of going to a website that may not be optimized. And that's one of the other things that they mentioned in this in the PDF that's included here. But on that note, we're 22 minutes into the first segment. We're going to go ahead and wrap up this first one. We're going to in the next segment, we're going to be talking about what it means to really look at providing the ability for customers to get what they want now as they are engaging with Facebook and dealers.
But if you're new to our page, what you could get right now is if you like and subscribe, and if you turn on notifications,
ding,
you will receive every time we put out new content. You will see when we do this. How often do we do this?
Well, so we record Mondays and Tuesdays, and we release new content every Thursday. So if you click on that notification bell, you will be notified as soon as a new episode is out. And on that note, David, so we're wrapping up the first segment of 031. Please don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. We're going to be talking more about taking out the friction in your customer's online experience. On that note, we'll be right back.
Buying a car should be easy. Say hello to Shopper Express, the way car buying should be. With Shopper Express, once you find your car, you can get our best price up front with no hassles. You can personalize your individual payment by selecting from financing or leasing options. Select your desired finance or lease term, adjust your down payment, even research all the available offers, rebates, and incentives, and then apply them to your deal. You can get a personalized trade-in value from Kelley Blue Book instantly. And in just minutes, you can get an express cash offer for your trade-in that's good for 7 days. Plus, research and select available protection plans. You can apply for financing and even get your credit score without your Social Security number. Configure your entire purchase transaction from anywhere in just minutes. Schedule an express delivery, so when you're ready to buy, you can be in and out in an hour or less, or request to have your next car delivered to you. Enjoy a better way to buy a car with Shopper Express.
Welcome back into episode 031 of the Modern Dealer Podcast, where we are talking Monster Jam.
Wait a
second.
Wait a minute. Before the break, we were talking some other stuff, but we just, it was just a Monster Jam email I got. Inviting you out. If you've ever been to Monster Jam, it's definitely an experience. I would have to say, it's if you're into big trucks and you cannot lie, well then you other truckers cannot deny when a monster truck comes in with big old wheels, man. It's pretty amazing because they do flips and stuff, and
it is amazing how much I mean, people go to these things.
Fill a
and
stadium.
it is nuts. I mean, and I mean the stadiums themselves. I mean, they're bringing in all that dirt to be able to create all those jumps and lifts and all that stuff. It is amazing.
It's some big money. So obviously those guys are getting some big royalties, and they do those races and stuff. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's neat to see. I mean, if you haven't done it, I mean, just knock it off the bucket list. It's something to see in person. And those are one of those motocross ones too. I've seen that indoors, like at the I still call it the Ice Palace, Emily Arena, but I've seen like a motocross, Moto X, and kind of craziness things, stunt tricks. It's neat to see. But, but on that note, there. We do a little coffee check today. What do we got there,
A little
Dave?
coffee check. I know I got the Pike Place Starbucks blend, their normal regular deal. I like it very much. It works really good. I think this. So this would be. We talked about last episode.
Oh my goodness, your coffee intake.
what my coffee intake is. So 3 before I left the house this morning, and I had one right before. And this one, so that's 5. And I'd say I probably had one when I got in, which would be 6. And then I'm sure that I freshened up sometime before you got here.
So you're halfway through your day. You're at 7, yeah. Well,
7. Now, not all of them. I'll drink them maybe halfway down before it gets cold, because I definitely like it hot, whether it's hot outside, whether it's cold outside. I like hot coffee. I mean, I think that's another thing that, some people are like, what are you doing? It's 100 degrees outside and you're drinking hot coffee?
It's all state of mind. Because sometimes I like hot coffee in the summer too, but lately I've been a little bougie and started doing let me get 3 shots of espresso with some ice, a splash of skim, and a flex capacitor added to my coffee. We get a little bougie with our coffee lately, but no, the Pike's, the Pike's Place, the Pike's Coffee, with the origin of that Pike is, right? Is actually the location of the first Starbucks.
Exactly.
Is at Pike's Place.
I've been there.
Yeah,
I've been there.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. Right where they're throwing the fish. Remember that old Levi's commercial with the 501 jeans, which is like on the same block right across the street from it, where the original Starbucks started, and it still has the actual real logo out front, the real Starbucks
That's very cool.
logo.
I think it's the only one that has the original logo, right?
The only one out of 25,000 worldwide locations.
Unbelievable.
Shaka. And add on to the top of that, I went since it is cooler out. You can see I'm wearing a sweater today. Since it still is cooler out. This is the weather I enjoy ramen, and not like on the sock ham today.
Yeah.
Not exactly top ramen, but top ramen's always been the college and the dormitory food of choice
per
pack, right? But this is nowadays. You've got these bougie ramen places that are an experience, because for like $20, which these were 20 cents. Yeah. The bowl of ramen's 20 cents, but you get a bowl of like actual homemade ramen in these places that are like $20. But you get sliced pork, you get crispy duck, you've got different toppings you can add on top of it, and it comes out like a piece of work, and it's so good this time of year because
I've never had it.
You were missing it.
Yeah, I think the only ramen that I've ever had is literally top ramen.
And you add your own ingredients to it sometimes.
Yeah.
I tried doing it at home, and it came out to be an MSG nightmare. it was so salty. I'm like, I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I remember, back in the band days. So when I was, when I was in my late teens, early 20s, in the band, of course, we had zero money, and we'd eat anything that we could. I mean, my 2 stories about that time. My singer used to work in the gas station that also was a gas station / Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh,
so
around the corner we have.
Yeah. Very similar to that. This was in Phoenix, and so when he would close up at night, he could bring home all the day-old donuts. I mean, so there was weeks on end. That's the only thing I ate. It was free donuts from day-old donuts from Dunkin' Donuts. Unbelievable. I can't even. I mean, I had so much of that because literally they're free.
Right.
You could eat for free. The other thing, you're talking about top ramen back then. I mean, if not free, as cheap as possible. And one thing I can tell you that if when you get bored of eating top ramen, one thing you can't do is you can't add chili, like a can of chili on top of ramen, it does not go well.
No, I think that's a disaster there.
Oh, I tried that a few times. It did not work.
I would drain the water actually and just put the powder on top of it, so you had like almost like a spaghetti. But oh man, the creamy chicken was so good that way. You can experiment with that at home. It's not so bad. I mean, several different ways. Like I said,
That's funny.
Some college dorms. I was in a military barracks, and it was just stacks and stacks of top
I
ramen.
bet.
So it was like there was currency back then. It was like, hey, I'll give you, a
Three ramens.
Yeah,
for,
3 ramens for a TV dinner or something like that. Like, all right, that's a deal.
All right, that's funny stuff. Oh, all right. So, getting back into it, David, this is some pretty funny stuff.
The friction.
Yeah.
Back into the friction. We created
Back
some
into
friction.
Removing the friction. Zero friction future, as defined by Facebook. They have a really cool PDF here. It looks really sharp. It doesn't have a ton of content in it. And it almost gives you the impression that if you sign up for this, that they're going to be able to kind of provide you this frictionless technology, which is not the case. They're making recommendations. They do, however, share with you how you can utilize the Facebook advertising platform to be able to really connect with consumers today, and kind of gives you a roadmap on how to reduce friction and move customers into a frictionless experience, providing a better experience. Some of the cool things that I saw, I don't know if you have this exact same thing up or not. This is that. Okay, good.
I'm a couple ownership friction.
Yeah, I want to see if. Okay, so down here, I'm not sure what page this is, but it's talking about the pain points for the discovery process. And they talk about awareness and browsing and evaluation. So this would be online and offline or online only. So some of the things that they noticed as top friction pain points. Number one, from an awareness standpoint, having customers that are unaware of a brand or a product even exists. So I think this is going to straddle a little bit of the tier 1 advertising versus the tier 3 advertising. What you as a dealer is responsible for. But, I think there's some responsibility for a dealership to be able to share what products are available, what models, model line, and so on. Some other things that they talk about here is the inconsistent information between online and offline sources. Are you having a challenge finding this page?
Well, you know what it is I actually looked at it on my mobile, and it was easier to find on my mobile because I looked at these charts here, and I'm just like, man, why is it not popping up here? That's okay.
Okay, no worries.
We're good.
All right. So inconsistent information between online and offline, difficult to consolidate information for decision making, need to share personal data to obtain more information, lack of online/mobile messaging option, lack of personalized support to help consumers choose vehicle, and then dealership inventory and pricing difficult to navigate. Some of the other top friction points: information is scattered, information not relevant or detailed, information not mobile optimized. So these are some things that we can, from a dealership standpoint, where you can look at this document and say, okay, what can I specifically do? What is Facebook helping me do as a dealer? How can I make my process and technology better so ultimately I can sell more cars? So what I would recommend is maybe get with your management team, and go through this document and really look at these top pain points and say, If a customer is coming to our dealership website or to our Facebook page, is our information scattered? Is the information that we're sharing relevant? Is it detailed enough? Is the information mobile optimized? This is going to be the really give you the roadmap of the things that you need to do to make sure that you're getting better in these different areas. As you go through this document, you're going to see purchase friction and pain points, different categories, test and feel, kind of like what they're what they're uncovering here to really provide some additional insights. So as shoppers close in on deciding their physical evaluation of whether a car fits their needs or not is often fraught with challenges such as unavailable vehicles, unhelpful salespeople, and broken online to offline experiences that require inputting information again in the store. So what they're outlining here, it's kind of laced throughout this entire zero friction PDF, is that the same things that we were dealing with 20 years ago, 20 years before that, is we're still dealing with them today. And that is unhelpful salespeople, vehicles that aren't available, and not really allowing a customer to complete their shopping experience in an easy way, right?
Mm-hmm. So what I got from that experience, as you can see on that slide there, which do I have? I think I might have that same slide. Anyhow, but going back to the two main friction categories, the test and feel, for a customer that when they come to the dealership, and like it said, the problem we've had for the last 40 years in the business is salespeople just not aware of simply the inventory, simply, customers coming in, and especially if they scheduled a test drive. I think the worst things that I've seen at the store is, okay, somebody scheduled a test drive. Now that transition from either they called, either they were an internet lead or they're a social media lead, however they got a hold of you, even could have been a previous customer.
Yep.
A lot of times there's got to be a process in place at the store that they create, said, okay, from here to here, what are we doing to reduce friction so when the customer comes in, that particular vehicle or one as close to it as possible is ready for this customer to test drive. And I don't think there's a lot of focus on just that. It sounds so simple that we're like, oh, just go grab the keys. But what are we doing ahead of time to plan for that customer, prepared for that customer, if the customer feel that there is no friction from what they transpired, whichever channel they came in through, that it's just as simple as can be just coming into the showroom, and we're aware of that. So, some dealerships have an appointment board, right? Digital appointment board that you can see when you walk in. When I was in Seattle a couple weeks ago, I walked into a dealership and they had, a very large, 80-inch TV with all the appointments listed out that day, scrolling. I know that was a best practice with automation years ago. Yeah. But I think some stores have probably gotten away from that. But, having something like that and basically, a concrete process that, hey, salesperson, hey, David, you're assigned to this customer that's coming in. And, some salespeople, I think the disconnect may have been, back in the days that people didn't feel that, oh, this customer's actually going to show up.
Sure.
They didn't take it that serious because it was the transition from telephone to different technology. Oh, if somebody calls, they're more serious than somebody does an internet inquiry. I think you and I, when we were in a business, I felt guilty of that. Oh, the internet, that person's not really that serious. I don't think they're coming in.
Right.
And I thought that way as a used car manager, as a new car manager. But now, you cannot have that mentality that the customers really, they are going to show up. And then when they show up, you got to be prepared for that customer.
I think you bring up some very good points, and let's kind of drill through them. So first of all, I think that, and please provide us feedback in the comment section below. I'd love to hear our dealers' feedback of what's actually happening on your showroom floor. I can tell you from my experience working with a lot of dealerships that it starts to break down when we introduce people and processes at the dealership. We know that those are the two most important things, three most important things: people, process, and product, right? But when it comes to people, making sure that you have a training process and a salesperson replacement process at the dealership. So this is one of the things that I implemented in my last retail experience is every single month we had a hiring event. So it was the dealership that we were selling a fair amount of cars. We had about 40 salespeople on the showroom floor. So we knew that we were going to have some attrition, right? People are going to quit. They're going to get fired. They're going to move on. And it seems to me that so many dealerships are in complete reactive mode, where they get to the point where I should have 30 salespeople. All of a sudden, now I got one person out because they're sick, one person out because they had a problem in the family, and 3 people quit. Now I'm down to 22 people, but I'm not going to get to where I'm going to go if I don't have 30. So now we need to hire people. Now the problem with that is I'm going to run out. I'm going to try to hire people, right? Or I'm going to recruit them or use a recruiting service, and I'm going to outsource my training to somebody else that may or may not be good, and then I'm going to bring them in, and then I'm going to throw them in on the showroom floor because I need people. I got too many people coming in on a Saturday. Now I'm throwing an inexperienced person that's kind of chasing their tail. That customer is gonna, up anybody, right? And then you got your experienced salespeople that aren't upping customers because they're waiting for maybe, you got this
perfect customer,
right? You got this total dynamic going on in a lot of stores. So I think that what I would recommend for dealerships to look back is take a step back. Do you have a proactive process to make sure that you have enough salespeople that are going to take care of the customers that are going to be coming into your store? So, you start to think about, and I know that we're kind of going off script here, away from the idea of friction, but at the same point, we're really diving into the pain points. So what I would say is okay, do the math, right? I want to sell 300 cars per month. If that's what your goal is. If it's 200, it's 200. If it's 700, it's 700. So you look at what your stats are and figure out, well, how many people do you need to have walk in the door to be able to sell 300 cars? How many leads do you need to come into your internet department to be able to handle, to be able to ultimately sell those amount of cars? You figure out what those numbers are, right? So I'm closing at 25%.
Reverse engineer the whole thing.
Reverse engineer the whole thing. I need to have 1,200 people walk in the door if I'm at a 25% closing ratio. If you're at a 40% closing ratio, of course that number needs to be less. If you're at a 10% closing ratio, of course it's going to be more. But so the first things as an operator, you really need to reverse engineer how many people you need at on the sales floor to be able to handle those customers, and it's all going to trickle down from there. If you need to sell 300 cars and your average salespeople are selling 8 cars per month, how many people do you need? If your average salesperson is selling 10 cars per month, how many salespeople? If they're selling 20, you figure it out,
30,
right?
You need 12.
Right. Yeah. So you reverse engineer how many people. Now, if you are, as an operator, you need to sell 300 cars a month, or whatever your number is, and you don't have a key component, you don't have the right amount of people, what ends up happening is you're going to hope that your people are going to do better. You're going to wish your people are going to be able to increase their production. So instead of selling 12 cars per month on average, you're going to hope that they sell 15 to be able to get to get your number, right?
Right.
So think about that as how a customer is going to how to solve for that pain point. Meaning, when a customer comes into your dealership showroom, are they going to be met by a salesperson that is professionally trained, that understands the product, that knows where the product is, knows how to get the keys, knows how to handle the paperwork, and to be able to funnel through.
Like you said, David, it's a reactive process that we, as a dealer, we may have reacted by saying, okay, I don't have enough salespeople. I've got 20 people today, and I need to be at 30 salespeople in order to achieve this 300, because maybe all our guys are selling 10 cars a month. That's what we're going to just take that average down to that. When you throw somebody that was trained by somebody else that wasn't part of the culture of your dealership, like you said, doesn't know the idiosyncrasies of your store, doesn't understand that, like, hey, check the keys out properly through KeyTrack, and just all the little things that you do at your store. It's going to differentiate from store to store to store. Know where the paperwork's at. Trying to cram all that actually creates a large snowball effect in the entire whole process. I mean, it's creating friction, and that friction actually is going to result in lower CSI, lower gross, because the longer it takes with the customer gets more pissed off, and the more pissed off they get, they just want to be in a hurry, and then of course you're going to have to just drop the price or give them something that you wouldn't have normally done in order to achieve this goal of satisfying the customer and reducing the friction. So I mean, so many little things throughout the process that add friction. I remember we broke down the entire sales process one time at the store, and we figured at our dealership at the time it was 3 hours and 45 minutes from a customer to say hello to say goodbye with taillights on a new vehicle, and that's just way too long. And you have to really reverse engineer. It's like, how do we get the time down? What are we doing wrong? So let's go from delivery. Instead of hello, we start with the delivery, work our way back, and see where we can reduce some of these time constraints. And when you reverse engineer something like figuring out how many people you need and figuring out how to reduce the time process, in the end, it's going to obviously result in a much smoother transaction for the customer, better CSI. Less friction, less friction, because there is a lot of friction in our business, man.
What I want to do? I don't want to cut you off there, but I think it's great information. We're already 22 minutes into the second segment, so we need to get this thing wrapped up pretty quick here. There's a couple of the things that we need to get through, but I want to put this out there as another thing to think about when it comes to solving for pain points in taking care of customers when they come in. This is something that I implemented again in the last time I was in retail, and I think more dealerships need to do this. And this is to get away from the standard 2-team schedule that dealerships have and move into a 3-team schedule. And this really worked really cool. So we had, I want to say depending on at what point and so on, we were between 12 and 15 people per team. And we had 3 teams that were working. Now, what the 3-team model allows you to do is just think about your busiest day is going to be Saturday, right? So if you have one team starting at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m., let's say, and then you got another team starting at 10, and then you got another team starting at 2, between 10 and, or between 12 and, let's say, 5, you're going to have all your sales people there on every Saturday. Right. And then that also gives you the ability to schedule 2 days off in a row for your sales team and rotate those three teams through. And it also gives you the opportunity to really understand when you're missing somebody. So if you have, let's say you have 3 teams with 12 people and you have one team that's already down to 10 or 9, you know that there's a challenge there, and maybe you can move some people from team to team, or you make it the responsibility of that team manager to make sure that they always have their 12. So just something to think about. In regards to building a sales team, some out-of-the-box ideas on scheduling, making it more attractive for millennials and Gen Zers for coming in, maybe that 2 days off per week and a lighter schedule, but make it actually better for your dealership because you're going to have the right amount of people at the right time. So I would definitely recommend to do that. So with that, David, we're going to go ahead and wrap up our, kind of our normal deal. So the Analytics Insights 2020 for today, we're going to talk about and just briefly address events and goals. So these are two of really the most important elements of Google Analytics is to be able to track what customers are doing online and make sure that we are measuring the activity that we want customers to take. So for example, we talked a lot about customers scheduling test drives. So that would be a goal that we want to have customers achieve when they visit your dealership website. So maybe that is a technology like Lead Maker. So when they complete a lead conversion in Lead Maker, that would be the completion of a goal. Maybe it's just a simple form on your website. Maybe it's on a special schedule your test drive landing page where you give the customer the ability to schedule these things, which would be free right in your dealership's website. Excuse me, but that would them completing that schedule would be a goal. So the way I kind of think about a goal would be if a customer or if a person is running a race and they finish the race and they go through the end and they break the ribbon, that means that they've completed the goal, right?
Correct.
Now, an event may be more like a hurdle. So if your customer is running that race and they're jumping over hurdles, maybe there's 3 or 4 different hurdles that they need to jump over to get to the goal, those would be considered events. Or maybe even if you want to have another analogy, maybe it doesn't matter.
Well, that's friction.
Okay.
Actually, those hurdles could be a little bit of
friction. Yep.
Kind of going back to that, but as far as the events, being able to track that a little bit better. And
well, it could be, so for example, it could be, let's say a customer, a typical customer would go from your homepage to a search results page, then a vehicle detail page, and then on that vehicle detail page is the button to schedule a test drive.
Got it.
And then maybe clicking the button is an event. So an event might be how many customers go to an SRP. That's an event, not a goal.
Got it.
From the SRP, do they click on opening up a VDP? That's an event, not a goal. And then if a customer clicks the button to schedule a test drive, that's an event.
Well, okay.
But then when they finish filling out the form and hit submit, that's the goal.
Got it.
Right? So it's event, goal, and then you can really start to measure what events are taking place. Okay. What's preventing a customer to get to the goal? That's maybe we want to put the schedule test drive button right on the SRP, which then you wouldn't have to go to the VDP,
right,
which is removing friction in the process. Right?
Less clicks. That's less friction in the whole process.
And maybe you start to think about what goals do you want? Well, I want a customer to be able to take a test drive. We want a customer to be able to get a trade value. We want a customer to be able to configure their deal. Those are the events, those are the goals that you want your customer to complete. Remove the friction it takes to get to those goals. I think works out extremely well. So anyways, Google Analytics Insights 2024, episode 031, events and goals. And that brings us to the last segment of our show, and that is Bert's 3 tips.
It's funny, as actually Alex had told me before this.
Now, I just want to break in. We got 1 minute, 20 seconds.
Real fast then. Hey, then one of the tips we got from the show today is automation. So shut off that automation at the receptionist, and just basically don't have somebody go through that menu of click 1 through 8. Just have them a live voice talk to them, reduce some of the friction there. Creating a social media transitional process or a online process for an appointment when somebody comes in. Define what your process is in the store. Distinctly define what exactly that is and what the expectations are, what you expect, and what the salespeople should expect. And also, one thing we didn't get into, but I did get from the slide deck, was they were talking about using Facebook Messenger to help reduce some of the friction and a communication point there to actually set appointments. And that might be a good way to do that, to have somebody dedicated to Facebook Messenger to set that there. And on that is as quickly as I can buzz.
Sorry about
right
that.
No problem.
I kind of went on, so we got about 10 seconds left here. So we always appreciate you tuning in. Please add some comments below. For David and
David,
that's a wrap.
That is not good, David.